My heart slammed against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the sudden, icy stillness that gripped me. I stared, unblinking, at the controller screen, my fingers tight on the joysticks. Camouflage netting. Vaguely hidden ventilation pipes snaking into the dense woods. An unnatural structure tucked beneath the trees, right behind her property line. What in the absolute hell was that? I zoomed the drone's camera further, the image sharpening with sickening clarity. Rows of vibrant green plants under artificial purple light. It couldn't be. But it was. Undeniably. And in that instant, everything clicked. The months of screaming accusations, the bizarre paranoia, the baseless threats, the violent destruction of my first drone. It was never about her privacy. It was about this illegal hidden secret. And the entitled neighbor from hell, in her furious attempt to control everything, had just inadvertently handed me the key to her spectacular downfall. It started weeks earlier with the sickening crack of shattering plastic on my own driveway, but trust me, it ended with police sirens and handcuffs. My name is Mark, and honestly, my life before all this chaos erupted was about as thrilling as watching paint dry, and I liked it that way. I work from home as a freelance graphic designer, tucked away in my converted spare bedroom office, clicking away on projects, fueled by coffee and the quiet hum of my computer. It's focused work, requires concentration, and thankfully it pays the bills and lets me indulge my real passion, photography. Specifically, landscape and aerial photography. There's just something magical about capturing the world from a different perspective, finding beauty in the light, the composition, the unique angle you can only get from above. It's my escape, my creative outlet. As a tech guy drawn to visuals, drone photography felt like a natural evolution. I started a few years back with a basic model, learned the rules of the air, even got the official certification just to be thorough. My wife, Sarah, she's supportive, mostly just teasing me about my expensive toys, while our cat, Jasper, remains supremely indifferent, viewing the drone case primarily as a potential warm napping spot. We live in one of those quiet, respectable suburban neighborhoods, trimmed lawns, polite waves, mostly everyone keeping to themselves. It was peaceful, maybe a little predictable, but it was our peace. No drama, no feuds, until she arrived. About a year ago, after months of meticulous research and careful saving, skipping lunches out, putting off other upgrades, I finally invested in a serious piece of equipment. A professional-grade drone. This wasn't just a toy, it was a tool for my passion. High-res camera, advanced gimbal for smooth shots, obstacle avoidance, the works. It cost a small fortune and I treated it like a Fabergé. I remember the excitement unboxing it, the potential it represented for capturing incredible images. I couldn't wait to master it. Those first few flights were purely about practice, getting the feel of the new controls. I was incredibly careful, flying only in my own backyard, keeping it low, maybe 15-20 feet max, hovering over my own grass and patio. I meticulously checked flight paths, ensuring I was nowhere near neighboring properties. The absolute last thing I wanted was to annoy anyone or give drones a bad name. I just wanted to practice smooth movements, test the camera settings on my own flower beds. That's when the house next door, which had been quiet for a while, sold. Moving trucks arrived and the transformation began. The house got a new coat of paint, a particular shade of beige that somehow managed to look aggressive. Then came the perfectly manicured, almost sterile landscaping, and a tall, imposing wrought iron fence that screamed, "Keep out, more than welcome." And then we met Carol. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon. I was doing my low-altitude hover test, drone directly over my patio, camera pointed down at the paving stones, checking the gimbal's response. Utterly focused on the controller screen. That's when I heard it, a voice sharp enough to cut glass slicing through the peaceful air. "Excuse me. Just what do you think you are doing back here?" I jumped, startled, and looked up. Standing right at the edge of her new fence, practically vibrating with indignation, was a woman I hadn't met yet. Hands planted firmly on her hips, perfectly coiffed blonde hair arranged in that severe, angled bob that seems to be standard issue for a certain type of personality. Oversized designer sunglasses were pushed up on her head, despite the mild sunlight. She wore pristine, expensive-looking athletic wear, though she looked about as athletic as a porcelain doll. Her lips were pursed into a thin, disapproving line, her eyes narrowed behind unseen lashes. I quickly brought the drone down, landing it gently on the small table beside me. Swallowing my surprise, I offered what I hoped was a friendly, non-threatening smile. "Oh, hi there. Didn't see you. Just got this new camera drone, trying to get the hang of it." I gestured towards the drone. "Pretty cool technology." Her expression didn't just remain frozen, it seemed to actively curdle. "A camera drone?" She spat the word camera like it was poison. "You mean a spy drone, don't you?" "Okay. Well, straight to hostile." No," I countered, trying to keep my tone light. "It's for photography. Hobby stuff. Just practicing here in my own yard." I made a point of gesturing around my clearly defined property. She scoffed, a sharp, ugly sound. She stalked closer to the fence, peering over it suspiciously, as if expecting to find hidden microphones in my rose bushes. "Your yard? That thing has a high-powered camera. You were pointing it right at my bedroom window. I saw you. You are invading my privacy." My jaw tightened. This was insane. Her house was a good 50 feet away, screened by her fence and a line of dense Leylandii cypress on her side. My drone had been maybe 10 feet off my patio, aimed down. Even if I'd tilted the camera to the absolute maximum angle, which I hadn't, it would have maybe captured the peak of her roof. "Ma'am," I began again, forcing calmness into my voice, "I can absolutely assure you, I wasn't pointing it anywhere near your property, let alone your window. It was directly over my patio, camera facing down. The flight logs record the GPS position and camera angle. I can show you if..." She cut me off with an imperious wave of her hand, her perfectly manicured nails flashing. "I don't need to see your fake logs. I know what I saw. People like you hiding behind technology to peep on decent folk. It's disgusting. It's probably illegal. I have rights, You keep that surveillance machine grounded, do you understand me? Or I will take action. There will be consequences." "Consequences? For flying a drone 10 feet above my own patio?" The sheer entitlement radiated off her like heat. Arguing felt like wrestling a greased pig, pointless and messy. "Look," I said, my patience fraying thin, "I'm your neighbor. I'm not looking for trouble. I'm flying legally and responsibly on my own property. I'll be mindful, but I'm not doing anything wrong." She let out another sharp, humorless laugh. "Mindful won't cut it. Don't fly it again. Period. We'll see how legal it is when I report you." She gave me one last withering glare, turned sharply on her heel, and marched back across her immaculate lawn into her aggressively beige sanctuary, slamming the door behind her. I stood there for a long moment, the drone sitting silently on the table, the afternoon air suddenly feeling heavy and charged. My stomach twisted into a knot. This wasn't just a grumpy neighbor, this felt like something else. Something deeply paranoid and hostile. What action was she planning? What consequences? A sense of profound unease washed over me. This wasn't just a bad first impression. This felt like the opening shot in a war I never wanted to fight. And a war it became. Carol wasn't the type to make idle threats, especially when her completely unfounded sense of being wronged was activated. That initial confrontation was just the beginning of her campaign of suburban terror. A few days later, the first passive-aggressive missile landed. Tucked under my doormat wasn't a friendly welcome to the neighborhood note, but a crisply typed and signed memo on thick cream paper. Community Awareness Bulletin. Residents are reminded that the operation of unmanned aerial devices equipped with recording capabilities may constitute a violation of privacy and potentially breach local ordinances regarding surveillance. Continued disregard for community comfort and safety may necessitate escalation to relevant authorities. Vigilance preserves tranquility. Surveillance? Community comfort? Our HOA's biggest concern was whether your recycling bin was visible from the street. I crushed the pretentious note in my fist, feeling a surge of pure irritation. This woman was genuinely unhinged. Then came the social offensive. I started noticing Carol holding court over the fence with other neighbors. I'd be trying to enjoy a quiet coffee on my porch, and I'd see her talking animatedly to Mrs. Gable from 2 doors down, gesturing dramatically towards my house, shaking her head with exaggerated concern. Poor Mrs. Gable, a sweet widow in her 70s, would just nod along politely, but I could see the seed of doubt being planted. Soon after, Mr. Henderson from across the street, a guy I usually shared gardening tips with, started offering only curt nods and avoiding eye contact. The friendly waves stopped. I was being subtly painted as the neighborhood creep. The feeling of being watched became palpable. Curtains would twitch in Carol's windows whenever I stepped outside. A package delivered to my porch was somehow accidentally knocked over. My morning newspaper started landing in the damp flower bed instead of on the dry porch steps. Then came the piece de resistance, a small, deliberate pile of dog droppings left right beside my car's driver's side door. Carol didn't own a dog. It was petty, infuriating, and impossible to prove, designed purely to needle and harass. I decided to try flying the drone again about 10 days later, determined not to be bullied off my own property. I picked a quiet Tuesday afternoon. I was hyper-cautious, keeping it barely 10 feet off the ground, hovering only over the very center of my back lawn, filming some of Sarah's new plants. Nothing remotely provocative. It didn't matter. Within 2 minutes, Carol was marching across her lawn, phone held high, recording. This time she didn't stop at the fence. She came right up my driveway, planting herself firmly on my property. "There he is," she yelled, her voice pitched loud enough for the entire block to hear. "Caught in the act. Spying on us all. Don't you have a job? Or do you just sit around being a pervert all day?" My blood pressure spiked. "Pervert? Again? On my property?" "Carol, get off my property," I said, my voice tight with contained anger. "No. The drone is over my lawn, nowhere near your house. You're trespassing and harassing me." She smirked, that venomously smug look I was coming to despise. "Oh, I'm just documenting your creepy behavior for everyone to see. Making sure the neighborhood is aware of the perv living next door." She waved her phone menacingly. "People are talking, Mark. They know what you are." My hands were shaking as I landed the drone. This was intolerable. "Leave. No. Or I'm calling the police," I stated, trying to project authority I didn't entirely feel. "Go ahead," she taunted. "Let them see what you're doing." She backed away slowly, still filming, a triumphant glint in her eye, before finally retreating to her fortress. I felt violated. Humiliated on my own doorstep. The joy I got from my hobby was being systematically poisoned by this woman's relentless attacks. Predictably, the HOA letter arrived the following week. Formal complaint, Carol Jensen. Allegations, invasive surveillance, privacy violation, neighborhood disturbance, creating fear. My heart sank reading the official language. I spent hours compiling my defense. Flight logs showing GPS data and low altitude, photos proving the drone was only over my property, a detailed written rebuttal. Thankfully, the HOA board had common sense. They reviewed everything, likely recognized Carol's pattern, and dismissed the complaint entirely, sending letters to both of us basically stating no rules were broken and urging neighborly conduct. You'd think a formal dismissal by the governing body of the neighborhood would shut her down, right? Oh, you sweet summer child. No. It was like throwing gasoline on a fire. Being told she was wrong officially seemed to offend her very core. Her entitlement went into overdrive. I even made one desperate attempt to reason with her husband. I caught him retrieving their mail one afternoon, looking typically stressed and downtrodden. "Mr. Jensen," I started, keeping my tone gentle, "can we maybe talk about this drone situation? Find some common ground." He physically recoiled, casting a terrified glance back at their house, as if Carol had surveillance microphones hidden in the mailbox. "Oh, look," he stammered, shuffling his feet. "Carol, she feels very, very strongly about, well, privacy. It's probably just best if you, maybe, fly it somewhere else." He practically sprinted inside before I could respond. It was clear he was utterly under her thumb, terrified of crossing her. The stress began to take a physical toll. I felt jumpy, constantly on edge. I stopped flying the drone completely. My expensive passion project gathered dust. My own backyard felt like hostile territory. I found myself avoiding going outside if I saw her car in the driveway. Sarah was livid, suggesting security cameras, which we did install, legal warnings, even moving. But I felt trapped. Why should we be driven out of our home because of one toxic individual? Yet, the constant low-level warfare, the feeling of being ostracized and falsely accused, was grinding me down. The peace of our quiet street was shattered. Something had to break. And I had a sinking feeling it wouldn't be Carol. Then came the day it all came crashing down. Literally. It was a gorgeous Saturday, perfect autumn weather. A few days prior, a nasty storm had blown through, heavy winds and driving rain. Looking up, I'd spotted a few roof shingles on the back slope of my house looking distinctly ruffled, possibly lifted. Definitely something needing a closer look before winter set in. My first thought was the latter. My second thought was the drone. My third thought was, no. I am not letting that woman dictate what I do on my own property when I have a legitimate, practical need. This wasn't recreational flying. This was essential home maintenance. Screw her paranoia. Steeling myself, I grabbed the drone and controller. I went out back, deliberately setting up on the side of my yard furthest from Carol's property. My plan was precise. Straight up, hover directly over my own roof line, capture clear video of the damaged shingles, straight back down. Minimum time, minimum altitude necessary, maximum distance from her. I even hit record before takeoff, narrating my actions clearly for the camera log. October 14th, approximately 2 p.m. Performing roof inspection following storm damage. Focusing camera on rear roof slope shingles only. Maintaining position directly over 123 Maple Street property. The drone ascended smoothly into the bright afternoon sky. I positioned it perfectly, camera angled down at my roof. Yep, there they were, 2 maybe 3 shingles clearly lifted at the edge. Good catch. I panned slowly along the roofline, getting footage of the whole area. I was probably only airborne for 3 minutes, maybe 4 tops. Then the eruption. A raw, furious scream from next door. I told you. I warned you. Get that thing down. Get it down now, you pervert. I glanced over, my stomach plummeting. Carol had burst from her back door and was charging across her lawn towards the fence like a linebacker, her face a mask of pure rage. Carol, I'm inspecting my roof. I shouted back, trying desperately to keep my voice steady and my focus on the drone controls. It's over my house. Calm down. But she was beyond reason. She reached her fence line, her eyes wild. And then she did something utterly unbelievable. She snatched up a long-handled metal garden rake that was leaning against her shed. With a guttural roar of effort, she swung it upwards, aiming directly at my drone hovering maybe 30 feet above my own driveway. Time seemed to warp, stretching into slow motion. I saw the metal tines flashing in the sun, arcing towards my drone. I jammed the ascent control, trying to yank it higher, faster, but it was too late. There was a sickening crack as the rake head connected solidly with one of the drone's arms and propeller assembly. Instantly, the drone destabilized. It lurched violently, spun like a dying insect, emitting a high-pitched, wounded whine, and then it just fell. Gravity took over, pulling it down, down, down until it smashed onto my concrete driveway with a sound that echoed in the sudden, shocking silence, a brutal crunch of plastic, metal, and shattered electronics. For a beat, I just stared at the wreckage. Then pure, unadulterated fury surged through me, hot and blinding. I sprinted over to the crash site. It was catastrophic. The main body was cracked open like an eggshell. 2 arms were completely sheared off. The delicate gimbal holding the expensive camera was dangling by a thread, the lens irrevocably smashed. My beautiful, carefully saved for drone, obliterated. My head snapped up. My hands clenched into white-knuckled fists. Carol stood there, panting slightly, the rake still gripped in her hand, now lowered. For a fleeting microsecond, I thought I saw shock in her eyes, maybe surprise at her own violent success. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by that familiar, defiant, entitled glare. What the hell did you just do? The words tore from my throat, raw with anger. That was thousands of dollars worth of equipment. You deliberately destroyed my property. She tossed her head back, recovering her composure with breathtaking speed. It flew right at me, she declared loudly, her voice ringing with manufactured fear. It was menacing. Diving. I was defending myself. Anyone would have done the same. Then, a nasty little smirk twisted her lips. Besides, she added, her tone dripping with false sympathy, looks like it just malfunctioned. Those cheap Chinese things are unreliable. Maybe you shouldn't fly dangerous toys where they don't belong. Where IT doesn't belong? I gestured furiously from the wreckage to my roof, then back to her. It was 30 feet above my own damn driveway. Inspecting my roof. I have the flight log. I have the video right up until the moment you smashed it out of the sky. Prove it, she sneered, folding her arms across her chest, radiating smug certainty. Sounds like your word against mine. And everyone around here already knows you're the creepy guy with the spy drone. Who are they going to believe? I was momentarily stunned into silence by the sheer audacity, the blatant gaslighting. My heart hammered against my ribs, adrenaline and impotent rage churning within me. She knew. She knew it would be hell to prove legally. The recording stopped at impact. No independent witnesses saw the rake connect. A police report would likely end as he said/she said. Small claims court would be a drawn-out, stressful circus she would probably enjoy. She gave a final, dismissive sniff, turned with the air of someone who had just won a great victory, and sauntered back to her aggressively beige house, leaving me standing alone amidst the shattered pieces of my passion, feeling utterly violated, furious, and completely powerless. The beautiful day was irrevocably tainted. She hadn't just broken a drone, she had assaulted my peace, my property, my sense of safety in my own home. And the most infuriating part? She looked absolutely thrilled about it. As I knelt, carefully gathering the broken shards, a cold resolve hardened within me. This wasn't just about a drone anymore. This was about justice. And somehow, some way she was going to face it. The following days were a fog of simmering anger and frustration. Every glimpse of Carol's house, every memory of her smug face as she stood over the wreckage of my drone, sent fresh waves of heat through me. Sarah was incandescent with rage, advocating for immediate legal action, calling lawyers, wanting to plaster flyers around the neighborhood. Part of me wanted that too, swift, public retribution. But the thought of engaging directly with Carol, giving her the stage she clearly craved, battling her lies in a formal setting, it felt like letting her win on her own terms. It felt exhausting. Then, gradually, the anger began to morph into something else. A cold, hard determination. Why should I let this neighborhood tyrant dictate my life? Why should her unhinged paranoia ground my passion? She smashed my drone, yes. She cost me a significant amount of money and peace of mind. But she wasn't going to break my spirit. She wasn't going to win. I checked my insurance policy again. The deductible was high, but combined with the emergency fund I kept, replacing the drone was feasible. And the thought of getting back in the air, refusing to be intimidated, felt like the only real way to reclaim my space. So I did it. I ordered a new drone. Not just a replacement, but a slight upgrade, better camera resolution, longer flight time, enhanced zoom capabilities. Clicking confirm purchase felt like an act of defiance. When the new drone arrived a couple of weeks later, carefully unboxing it felt like unwrapping hope. It was sleek, powerful, and the controller felt solid and reassuring in my hands. This wasn't just a gadget. It was a symbol of resilience. I would fly again. But this time knowledge was power. I would be smarter. I would be far more observant. I picked a clear weekday morning, minimal neighborhood activity. My hands were actually sweating a little as I took the new drone out to the backyard. Jasper watched from the windowsill, radiating his usual feline judgment. Taking several deep breaths to steady my nerves, I initiated the launch sequence. Okay, Mark. Stay calm. Fly high. Be aware. The drone ascended vertically, smoothly and quietly. Much higher this time. Well within the 400-foot legal ceiling, but high enough to be just a distant speck, minimizing any perceived intrusion. I activated the GPS hold, keeping it positioned directly over the center of my property. Today's mission: system checks, camera tests, familiarization with the enhanced zoom. Pointing the camera down, I admired the crystal-clear image of my own lawn. Perfect. Then I began a slow 360-degree pan, testing the gimbal's smoothness, capturing the panorama of the neighborhood, the trees, the distant skyline. I tilted the camera up slightly, focusing on landmarks far beyond our immediate street, a water tower, a cluster of tall pines at the edge of the undeveloped woodland that bordered the rear of several properties, including Carol's. And that's when my entire world tilted on its axis. Purely by chance, I was testing the limits of the new, powerful optical and digital zoom, focusing on a specific patch of dense woods behind the back fence line of Carol's property. Her main yard was visible, immaculate, and boring as ever. But further back, deeper within the tree line, in an area that looked unkempt and wild, something was distinctly out of place. At first, it was just a flicker of unnatural shape through the powerful lens. An anomaly in the green and brown tapestry. Intrigued, I hovered the drone rock steady and pushed the zoom further. My breath hitched. Hidden beneath the canopy, draped clumsily with camouflage netting, was a structure. Not a kid's fort or a garden shed. This was larger, squarer, and deliberately concealed. Then I saw the pipes, thick, plastic ventilation pipes, painted a crude green, sticking out from under the netting, starkly artificial against the natural surroundings. Dark plastic sheeting lay discarded nearby. My mind raced. What on earth was I looking at? Why go to such lengths to hide something back there? Then, through a small tear in the netting, illuminated by an eerie, purplish glow filtering from within, I saw it. Plants. Rows and rows of them. Unmistakably, unnaturally vibrant green under what had to be grow lamps. A shock, cold and electric, shot through me. No, it couldn't be. I pushed the zoom to its absolute maximum, my hands surprisingly steady despite the sudden roar in my ears. The resolution was incredible. There was no doubt now. Cannabis. A significant cultivation operation. Not just a couple of plants tucked away, this looked organized, extensive. An illegal grow-op, hidden meters from her aggressively beige house. Suddenly the past 6 months snapped into sharp, horrifying focus. Carol's volcanic reactions to the drone. Her obsessive paranoia about being watched. Her frantic, illogical accusations of spying. Her violent rage when I flew near the back of my own property. It was never about me potentially seeing her sunbathe or peering in her windows. It was about this. She wasn't protecting her privacy, she was protecting her criminal enterprise. My heart was hammering against my ribs now, adrenaline surging. Quickly, methodically, I recorded a clear, steady 1-minute video clip, panning slowly across the hidden setup, ensuring the camouflage, the vents, the visible plants, and the structure itself were all clearly documented. The drone's telemetry overlay clearly stamped the precise GPS coordinates onto the footage. Evidence. Hard, undeniable evidence. Pulse pounding, I brought the drone straight down, landing it swiftly and silently. I practically ran inside, my mind buzzing. I jammed the memory card into my computer, pulled the footage up onto my largest monitor. The clarity was stunning. The truth was unavoidable. She destroyed my property, tormented me, tried to ruin my reputation in the neighborhood, all to keep this hidden. The staggering hypocrisy, the sheer entitled audacity of it all, left me breathless. She had painted me as the criminal, the threat, while running an actual illegal operation in the woods behind her house. A slow, cold smile touched my lips. It wasn't a smile of joy, but one of grim, profound satisfaction. "Oh, Carol," I murmured to the empty room. "You monumentally screwed up." She thought she'd won by smashing a drone. She had no idea she'd just handed me the weapon for her own self-destruction. The game had just fundamentally changed. And all the power was now in my hands. Staring at the damning footage on my screen, the path forward became crystal clear. Revenge fantasies flickered, confronting her, maybe anonymously mailing her a single printed frame from the video, but they felt petty, unsatisfying, and frankly too risky. Dealing directly with someone as volatile and irrational as Carol? No thanks. Engaging her would just give her more ammunition, more drama to twist. Going public, leaking it to the neighborhood gossip mill? Also tempting, imagining her carefully constructed facade crumbling under whispers and sideways glances. But again too messy. Too unpredictable. It could easily make me look like the bad guy, the vengeful neighbor engaging in drone spying, regardless of the accidental nature of the discovery. No. There was only one appropriate, effective, and clean way to handle this. This wasn't a neighborly dispute anymore. This was a criminal matter. It needed the proper authorities. I spent the next hour meticulously preparing. I downloaded the high-definition video file, creating multiple encrypted backups on separate drives. I noted the exact date, time, and GPS coordinates embedded in the footage. Then I opened a secure connection and navigated to the local police department's anonymous online tip submission portal. Carefully, factually, I laid out what the video showed. I described the camouflage structure, the ventilation, the visible plants under grow lights, estimating the potential scale based on the structure's size. I emphasized that this appeared to be a significant cultivation operation, not just personal use. I attached the video file and the precise coordinates. Crucially, I omitted any mention of my history with Carol, the harassment, the destroyed drone. This needed to be presented as a straightforward observation of suspected illegal activity by a concerned, anonymous citizen. No personal vendetta, just facts. I reviewed it twice, ensuring nothing could trace back to me, and hit submit. A wave of profound calm washed over me as the confirmation message appeared. It was done. The ball was out of my court. Justice, or at least the process towards it, was now in motion, completely independent of me. Whatever happened next was up to them. I didn't have long to wonder. 3 days later, on a quiet Tuesday morning, the calm was shattered. Not by Carol this time, but by the unmistakable sound of multiple sirens converging on our street. My head snapped up from my design work. Jasper, startled from his nap, bolted under the desk. I moved cautiously to the front window, peering through the blinds. My breath caught. 2 marked police cruisers and an unmarked sedan were parked directly in front of Carol's house, lights flashing silently now. Several officers were out, moving with purpose. One was walking briskly up her pristine walkway, rapping sharply on the aggressively beige front door. My pulse quickened, a mixture of anticipation and nervous energy. This was it. Showtime. I saw Carol's front curtain twitch violently, then fall back into place. A moment later, the door creaked open and Carol stood there. Even from across the street, her body language screamed indignation. Head high, arms crossed, ready to unleash fury on whoever dared disturb her kingdom. I couldn't hear the initial words, but I watched her posture transform in seconds. Annoyance melted into confusion, then morphed into visible, dawning panic. Her arms started windmilling, her voice rising in pitch, though the words were lost to distance. The lead officer remained impassive, holding up a document, clearly a warrant. Her husband, poor soul, appeared behind her, looking gray and utterly terrified, like a man resigned to his fate. Carol continued to argue, gesturing wildly, perhaps trying to deflect, maybe even pointing towards my house again. It wouldn't have surprised me. But the police weren't playing her game. More officers were already fanning out, heading purposefully around the side of the house, towards the backyard, towards the woods, towards her secret. This was the critical moment. Had they found it based on the coordinates? Was the evidence compelling enough? The wait felt agonizingly long, though it was probably only 5 minutes. Then an officer emerged from the back, spoke briefly into his radio, and gave a curt nod to the officers still at the front door. That single nod sealed her fate. Things escalated rapidly. Carol let out a strangled sound, a mixture of a shriek and a sob, pure disbelief warring with fury. The officers calmly stepped past her into the house. Her husband seemed to deflate, leaning heavily against the doorframe as if his legs could no longer support him. More police vehicles arrived, another cruiser, a larger van, maybe forensics. Neighbors, drawn by the prolonged commotion, started emerging onto their lawns, forming small, whispering clusters on the sidewalks across the street. Faces registered shock, confusion, then dawning comprehension. Mrs. Gable looked utterly bewildered. Mr. Henderson stood with his arms crossed, just slowly shaking his head. The carefully constructed narrative Carol had fed them, Mark the drone pervert, was dissolving like sugar in hot water, replaced by a far more sordid and criminal reality. Then the evidence started coming out. Officers emerged from the back path carrying large, opaque evidence bags. Lots of them. Then came the plants, dozens and dozens of mature marijuana plants, their distinctive leaves unmistakable even from a distance, carried out carefully and loaded into the van. The sheer volume was staggering, far more extensive than I had even guessed from the aerial view. This wasn't just a side hustle, this was an operation. And finally the main event. The front door opened one last time. Carol was escorted out, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. Her face was a mess, contorted with rage, streaked with tears, her perfect blonde bob utterly disheveled. She was shouting, spitting incoherent accusations at the police, at the watching neighbors, at the world. She looked utterly broken, stripped of her power and entitlement. As they guided her towards the back of a cruiser, her wild eyes scanned the street, finally locking onto my window. We held eye contact for perhaps 2 seconds across the distance. I kept my expression completely neutral. No smirk, no gloating, just watching. But in that moment, I saw the flicker of recognition in her eyes, the horrified understanding dawning amidst the chaos. She didn't know how, couldn't prove anything, but I think she knew. She knew her relentless persecution of me had, somehow, led directly to this. The look wasn't just fury anymore, it was the devastating impact of absolute, irreversible defeat. Her husband was let out moments later, shoulders slumped, looking utterly broken and resigned. He didn't resist, didn't rage. He just shuffled towards the second cruiser, the picture of defeated complicity. The car doors slammed shut. The sirens flicked back on, quieter this time, and the police vehicles pulled away, taking Carol, her husband, and their shattered world with them. A stunned silence fell over the street, broken only by the rustle of autumn leaves. The aggressively beige house suddenly looked small, tainted, and profoundly empty. I stepped back from the window, releasing a long, slow breath I hadn't even realized I was holding. It was definitively, irrevocably over. The payoff wasn't loud or dramatic for me personally, but watching justice unfold, watching her self-destruct as a direct consequence of her own actions, it was deeply, profoundly satisfying. She tried to swat my drone from the sky like an annoying fly, and in doing so, brought the full weight of the law down upon herself. Poetic justice, delivered anonymously, efficiently, and with a side of irony so thick you could cut it with a knife. The days and weeks that followed were marked by a profound sense of quiet relief washing over the neighborhood. The police finished processing the scene, dismantling the hidden grow-up, and then the street returned to its normal rhythm, minus the undercurrent of tension Carol had created. A for sale sign appeared on her lawn surprisingly quickly, hammered slightly askew into the perfect grass. News filtered through the grapevine. Carol and her husband were facing serious felony charges. Cultivation, possession with intent to distribute, possibly conspiracy. Given the scale, prison time seemed likely. The shift in the neighborhood atmosphere was palpable. The awkwardness vanished. People started making eye contact again, offering genuine smiles. Mr. Henderson caught me outside one afternoon while I was trimming the hedges. He cleared his throat awkwardly. "Hey, Mark," he began, looking down at his shoes for a second. "Listen, about all that unpleasantness before. With the drone stuff. Guess some of us were quick to judge. Just wanted to say, sorry about that. Glad things are quieter now." "Thanks, Bill," I replied sincerely. Water under the bridge. We're all glad for the peace. Several other neighbors offered similar, if less direct, acknowledgments. A friendly wave held a fraction longer, a casual chat initiated over the fence, a shared eye roll when Carol's name briefly came up. The community fabric, slightly frayed by her manipulations, began knitting itself back together. But the greatest restoration was personal. My backyard felt like mine again. My home felt like a sanctuary again. The simple act of stepping outside without that knot of dread tightening in my stomach was liberating. Grilling burgers on the patio, reading a book on the porch, these small, everyday moments regained their simple joy, untainted by the feeling of being watched or the anticipation of the next confrontation. And of course there was the drone. Taking the new one up for its first real recreational flight after the raid felt incredible. I sent it soaring high over my house, the powerful motors humming quietly. I panned across the now peaceful neighborhood, tilted the camera down at my own roof, no shingles looked loose anymore thankfully, and then flew it over the adjacent park, capturing breathtaking aerial views of the vibrant autumn leaves against the clear blue sky. I flew it freely, confidently, without an ounce of fear or hesitation. My passion, my hobby, my expensive piece of technology, it was mine to enjoy again without apology or justification. Looking back on the whole insane episode, it still feels slightly surreal. A love for photography leads to a drone, which attracts the ire of an incredibly entitled neighbor, whose paranoia leads her to violently destroy it, which prompts me to get a better drone, which then accidentally uncovers her significant criminal enterprise hidden just feet away. You really couldn't write fiction this bizarre. It definitely hammered home a couple of life lessons. First, that extreme aggression and entitlement, like Carol's, often mask deep-seated fear and hidden secrets. Her desperate need to control her surroundings and bully perceived threats was directly tied to protecting her illegal operation. Second, while direct confrontation sometimes feels necessary, sometimes the smartest path, and the most satisfying, is quiet, strategic action. Standing my ground by simply refusing to be intimidated, by continuing my hobby responsibly, inadvertently led to the perfect, self-inflicted consequences for her. I didn't seek out revenge, not really. But seeing her face genuine accountability brought about entirely by her own choices and her attack on me, well, there's a profound sense of justice in that. The drone she smashed cost me money, yes. But the peace of mind restored, the ability to feel safe and comfortable in my own home and pursue my passion without fear? That's truly priceless. Every time I launch my drone now, watching it climb effortlessly into the sky, I can't help but think, She tried to ground me, but she only succeeded in grounding herself. Sometimes karma flies higher than you think.